You almost feel like he doesn't get the attention he deserves because of the defense he plays in, where it's just superstar everywhere. How did this group have, well, they won a national title, so that's the answer. I guess that explains a lot.
How did the national champions
have Chris Jenkins, Mason Graham, and Kenneth Grant?
I mean, it is sick.
It becomes the old Washington coaching staff where it's like McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel. It becomes the version of that for a college defensive front.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Join you for another edition of Summer Scouting. You're finally flipping over to the defensive side of the football, getting to interior defensive linemen. Could call it defensive tackles, but kind of know on my list, I've got a couple of guys that's like, they're kind of like 4-3 defensive ends, and those aren't true edge players. It's more of interior players. So that's why we just call them interior defensive linemen. We're going to give you our top 8s. You can go rapid fire 8 through 6, and then get a little bit more in depth into our top 5s going into the season, telling you what we like about these guys, how we think they can get better. Connor, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great, man. Listen, we had a little break. We did this EA CFB rankings, so summer scouting had a 1-week pause, and we're back. And I'll tell you, it was nice to have the extra time for this group. We were talking off air. You watched 15 players. I watched 14 players. This was a really, really deep class, and it felt like there's plenty more that we'll talk about throughout the season that we won't get to today. So the defensive line, it's good to see that it's shaping up to be a strength this year.
Yeah.
Because I think interior D-line, we've had some thin classes over the years at times. We've had some strong edge classes, but the interior, which that gray area, you got the thing when you're watching the D-line, you watch these kids play all the way from a 9 into a true nose.
Yeah.
It is really, the usage is hard to figure out with the body types and everything, but I think we'll get down to it today pretty precisely.
It's interesting to kind of have a little bit of a discussion about this position before we get into it. You and I were just chatting before we hit record. Texas A&M is one of those schools that kind of just recruits a lot of high star athlete players along the defensive line. And they sort of just want to get them in the program, and then they'll kind of figure it out later, whether it's Walter Nolan or Shemar Turner or Nick Scourton or like whoever. Like they're recruiting these high profile players and then just sort of figuring out along the defensive line. I would say that today's age of football, and we talk about on the offensive side of the ball, these like slot receivers and tight ends who are also slot receivers and guys who could be inside and out, playing on the outside of the numbers or in between the numbers. There's just so much versatility, it feels like, with skill position on the offensive side of the ball. It does feel like maybe not equally as versatile, but like you mentioned, there's some of these guys who are, okay, your weight and your measurables, clearly you're an edge, but all of a sudden the team's kicking you into 3 technique or nose all the time because you're just trying to get these crazy advantages. So this feels like a more fluid time along the defensive line than we've ever had. I feel like we used to be much more structured, and now you're playing odd fronts and even fronts in the same game, and you're playing edge, you're playing inside. So it makes it a little bit tougher, but it does sort of give you a lot of creativity of how you scout these guys and where you can see them playing.
I agree with you. What we do, I think, is very different in a sense for this position group than what an NFL team would do, right? I mean, there are players that are more than completely draftable players that might not be on your board if they don't fit your scheme on the defensive line.
Sure.
While we look at this thing and we just evaluate it as a whole based on talent. While we'll talk about players today, Trevor, that are, some are 340 pounds doing one job, and then you'll talk about another player that's barely 290 doing a totally different job in the same position group.
Right.
And it feels funky, but that's the nature of not only the athleticism infusion at this position group from recruiting over the years, but how different and varied and multiple fronts are across not only the NFL, but now college football.
I think at the top of this defensive tackle class, interior defensive line, I'm breaking my own rules. I think that we have, in my opinion, at least one player who could go number 1 overall in this upcoming draft class.
I agree with you.
And
I know it's the same player.
I wonder if it's the same player, because if you ask people out there right now, it feels like it could be a 2-man race for who's going to be IDL 1. And so I'm sitting here trying to tease it a little bit to make sure people listen to the end of the episode, telling you that one of these guys could go number one overall. I'm curious. I got faith that we're going to have the same guy. I got faith in you, my friend, that you see it the right way, that you're going to be on the right side of history here. But we'll see when we get to the end of the podcast here. All right, let's hear from you first. Let's go 8 through 6. Give me your 3 guys, a little bit of a treetops, and then I think we'll probably ask some questions as we kind of get through those 3 guys.
So 8 for me was the Godfather, Dontay Corleone from Cincinnati,
love
who,
it.
a true joy to watch. Had a blood clot scare this offseason. Sounds like he's, on the mend, getting right. Can't wait to see him back out there on the field. He's got 2 full years of tape. If you've watched for the draft over the years, if you watch Jawan Briggs, like you've seen Corleone play next to him on this defensive line. I'm sure we'll have a conversation about him. So 7 for me was Demonte Capehart from Clemson. He's probably the most interesting guy in my top 8 in terms of high variance on the spectrum of where he could be drafted, high or low. And then number 6 for me was Howard Cross III from Notre Dame, who is just this fire hydrant defensive lineman. And, truly a guy that, plays with his hair on fire, can shoot gaps, can wreak havoc. Not your most typical, like, wow, that looks the part on defensive line, but just wrecks the game and it doesn't matter. So there was a little something I liked about all of these guys.
So let's talk about the Clemson guy first, because the other 2, one of them's in my top 5. The other one is number 8. So I'll kick it off as I go through 8 through 6, but I did not watch the Clemson dude. So I would love to hear a little bit of background, what you thought of him, how you got to him being number 7 on your rankings.
So Capehart is about 6'4.5", 320 pounds. He is a well-built human. Like, he just looks the absolute part of an NFL defensive tackle. He was a top 50 recruit in the 2019 class at IMG Academy. Now that feels like a long time ago. So he's been at the college level for a bit here. Massive frame, massive presence right in the middle of the defensive line. He knows how to drive his big body into blockers to clog the run. Some overwhelming flashes of power where he could just dump the center right on his ass and kind of own the pocket. He keeps his pad level low, and really drives his legs against the run. Like, it's impressive for a guy that big. He understands the leverage game and how to disrupt the run and redirect the run or make plays in the backfield. And just, once again, when you watch his ability to drive blockers backwards, it consistently redirects running backs into bad running lanes. So it might not be the guy that gets the tackle in the stat sheet, but he's a guy that was the first to really ruin the play. Now, when you jump into, I called him really high variance. He's only played 246 snaps on defense over the last 2 seasons. That's not a lot. He's a true... he's a rotational player for them at that size. I think the pass rush plan can be a little predictable based on that straight line power, but there's also times where there's just nothing the opposition could do about it. That's how powerful he is.
Is he sort of just winning with like a bull rush?
Pretty consistently, yeah.
Because there's a couple players that I watched where I noted that, where it's like your pass rush plan is basically just bull rush or bull rush variation, something like that. So
I felt like that. For him, he was one of those guys. And like you said, there's a few of them. It felt like the pass rush was just straight line power, bull rush. I think he generates power from his hips a little better than a lot of guys where he could do it more often. But not a diverse pass rush plan. He had a weapons charge, but it was dismissed before spring ball this season. So if you want to read up on that story, you can. It's kind of a convoluted story, but it was dismissed. He's back with the team. I'm just curious where grades are going to be on him, because it's the classic case of someone that he's not playing 80% of your snaps, 70% of your snaps, or we haven't seen that from him yet, but he's an early down force, like an absolute early down force. So, I put him on this list at 7, where if that snap count goes up and he stays to, as this kind of disruptor, he could jump up a couple spots. But if that snap count stays the same and he's this kind of one-dimensional powerhouse, then he's probably more of a, 3rd round kind of player than the ceiling he can grow into.
Sounds like right now, high floor, low ceiling player? Is that kind of what it sounds like for him?
Yeah, I would say so. I
Just
don't.
because he's redshirt senior then going into this season.
Yes.
And if you don't have a ton of pass rush moves by your redshirt senior year, not that you can't develop them, but it's a lot easier to say, hey, this true junior going into their junior year, we can expect them to get a little bit better as a pass rusher, as opposed to a redshirt senior guy getting better as a pass rusher from what we have seen. So, yeah, I mean, it obviously sounds like a guy who could really be good defending the run, but might not be a ton more.
If I was a defensive coordinator, I'd love to have him as an early down player. I mean, I thought he was flat out dominated, in my opinion, when I watched him against the run. And it was against good teams at times, too. That's what really stood out to me. It was just that. But once again, when you just look at, you know, missed a lot of time in 2022, and then last year, 163 snaps for the
Mm,
defense. It's
mm.
it's a low count. And there's some guys that didn't make my top 8 that they have a similar problem as
Mm.
well.
So I have Howard Cross, who is your 6th,
Yep.
right? So I have him at 8. And this is one of 2 Notre Dame players that I have here, because I have his teammate Rylie Mills. I have him at 7.
Okay.
And then I have Bear Alexander from USC at number 6. So that is my 8-7-6.
I really want you to talk about Bear. Before we get there,
Mm-hmm.
I had Mills at 10. Just a
Okay.
heads up. So I just
Okay.
wanted to clarify that. Mills I had behind Cross. He was at 10 for me in a good class. But
Well, let's just talk about the Notre Dame guys. Can we? Because we can knock
makes
it out
sense.
and
Pair
then
'em.
get there right before we hit the top 5s, because I'll talk about Corleone very shortly after. So who do you want to talk about first, Rylie, or do you want to talk about Cross first?
I'll just tell you my concerns with Mills, why he was at 10 for me.
Sure, go ahead.
Because there are things about Mills. I mean, he's 6'5" and a half. He's over 300 pounds. Looks the part. I thought the pass rushing in 2023 was very good.
A lot better.
Motor stays hot.
Yeah.
Swipes his hands. Push pull. Knows how to use his length. He's got to get more rugged against the run. He's got it's crazy to me at his size and build. He just gets wiped out by double teams, and he's not a plus as a run defender.
So you know what a big issue is for me, and background information, because I feel like we're running through fast because we want to talk about all these guys. But Rylie Mills, he's a redshirt senior at Notre Dame. Wears number 99. Connor mentioned he's 6'5", right around 300 pounds. Like sometimes he's been listed at 295, sometimes he's a little over 300. So he's right around 300 pounds.
I'm at 306 right now, which is a good number for him.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. He was a 4-star defensive end when he was coming into Notre Dame, but they've kind of moved him more as like an interior player. He plays more of like 3 techs. A lot of times Howard Cross will play nose, which is funny.
It's very funny.
But we'll have the Howard Cross discussion because it's a fascinating one. But he was also a track and field guy in high school. A lot of these guys were shot put and discus. I felt like I wrote that down a lot with a lot of these interior defensive linemen, which is becoming a common theme as we see these guys kind of come through. So 2023, you mentioned it. To me, it was a good year for him. Pass rush grade 82.4. Pass rush grade on true passing sets, which, that's no play action, no screens, the ball's not coming out of your hands immediately, like an actual, drop back pass. He's got to scan the field a little bit, gives you time to actually rush the passer. 82.0, so still pretty high. 82 is a really solid pass rushing grade. Pass rush win percentage, 15.1. That's 72nd percentile for interior defensive linemen. Run defense grade, like you mentioned, a little bit lower, 73.3. It's not terrible. Run stop percentage, 88.5, which is 80th percentile. But there are those times when I agree with you, and I kind of wanted to give a background before I sort of echoed what you said. He's 6'5", which you like that a lot about him. I actually think he projects best to a odd front defensive end. I feel like that's where he could be used best. That 4-eye technique, getting the most out of the length, being able to take up space, but it's sort of hard to project him to a ton of success in an odd front, because when you're playing in an odd front, a lot of times a primary job of yours can be to take up multiple blocks. And he's got the strength. I think, to handle multiple blocks. But Connor, this is a defensive lineman who he pops right up away, like right away. He gives up pad leverage way too quick. And to me, even in the plays where he was asked to hold the line of scrimmage and run defense, he just popped straight up, and it made it way easier for little combo blocks and even guards to just get underneath his pads and move him a lot easier than he should have, because you watch his play style, and I mean, he's got violent, strong hands. I mean, he's playing all out at all times, but a big issue for me with him is he's got to play way more controlled. Now, we'll say this all the time. I think coaches would say it too. You'd much rather coach a guy down if he's too, you know, all out than you would try to get something out of somebody that you can't see. But Mills, man, like the hands are wide. They're not where they need to be. He's trying to like fight things off and stay clean, but it's teetering on the line of all out effort and just erratic chaos. And I think too many times it goes into a detriment of him being out of control and chaotic. And I think the pad level goes into that. He's just got to take a deep breath before the snap and just remember two things: hands inside, pad level low. And if he does that, I think you got a really nice player on your hands, somebody who could play. I mean, he could play nose for you. You probably don't want him doing it too much, but he could play 2-eye. He could play 4-eye. He could play some 3 technique for you. And he can even play as a 5-tech defensive end because he's got that length to be able to do so if you want to be more powerful on the line of scrimmage when you're going up against the offensive tackle. So I like the length. I like what he brings to the table. He reminded me a little bit of Logan Hall from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And
I see that.
He's not the pass rusher that Logan Hall was. But both of these guys were very uniquely tall, around 290, 300 pounds, and they gave you all-out effort. And I think that style was similar. And look, you look at what Hall has kind of been since he has come into the league. 33, him getting picked at 33 was clearly a bit rich. So I'm not sitting here saying that Rylie Mills is going to be a early second-round pick, but the body style and the way he wants to win, it reminded me sort of how Logan Hall wants to win. So that's kind of how I saw that player.
Yeah, there's legit pass rush upside with Rylie. I mean, there really, really is. I actually, when I started this exercise, because I watched the Notre Dame guys together, so I watched them pretty early, I thought he'd be a lot higher than 10 for me from the flashes I saw, but there was more consistency in this class that really caught my eye that had him fall all the way back to 10. But yeah, I mean, there's legit pass rush skills there where, like you said, Trevor, if he kind of finds how to play a little bit more in control against the run, then you'd have a pretty well-rounded player.
There were times when I was watching Cross, because I watched Cross first, and I'd see Mills do something crazy, and I'm like, who is this J.J. Watt looking dude?
Right,
who is Big 99 blowing this play up? And, you put him under the microscope and you see his strengths and weaknesses. But there were definitely flashes of him giving you some NFL ability. So what about Howard Cross? So I got Cross at 8 and I got Mills at 7. You said you had Mills at 10 and Cross at 6. Talk to me about Howard Cross. Give me a little background. Tell me about the height and the weight, because we obviously got to talk about it here, but we'll have the Howard Cross conversation here.
He's definitely a little bit of an outlier there. 6'1" and 1/8, 288. So he's thick for his height, but he's definitely a different built kind of interior D-line, because sure, there are D tackles that play at that size, but like you said, Trevor, they play him at nose tackle plenty, like true nose tackle. You'll see him at 3-tech. You'll see him at nose tackle. So it is very funny when you watch him alongside Rylie Mills, who is just, almost built in a lab for a defensive tackle, I would say. With Cross, year 4 breakout for Notre Dame. It was his first year as a full-time starter in 2023. His dad played tight end 13 years for the Giants. Was on one of the Giants' Super Bowl winning teams. So there are bloodlines here. Obviously Cross got even more size or more girth than his dad. He's a savvy interior rusher.
Yes.
Savvy is the best way I can write it. You watch just the arsenal of ways to attack with his hands. And this is someone that had a 13.3% pass rush win rate. And that number, when you play a lot of nose tackle, It's pretty impressive. He's the low man in the trenches, which should not be a surprise at his height. And he knows how to shoot gaps with quickness off the ball. There's just so many times that he slips through the A gap. And I don't know if it's because of how low. I think it's a combination of everything. He rushes low. He's very quick off the snap. And he's pretty agile for his build.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you talk about the weaknesses, he is undersized for a true defensive tackle, for a true interior defensive line player. There's going to be times, like I saw with Rylie in this defense, that double teams just wipe him out of the play. And I think the difference is, especially when I hear you talking about your projections for a guy like Rylie, Cross is succeeding as a nose tackle. So what makes Cross awesome as a nose tackle is that he's too slippery and quick where he shoots that A gap all the time. And it's very hard for guards and centers to adjust to. What makes Cross a liability at nose tackle is, can I expect him to hold the point of attack and hold the line of scrimmage against the run, where you're going to be double teamed a lot? That's playing nose tackle.
Right.
So I really like the player a lot. I think in today's NFL, with so many teams rotating their defensive linemen and having, attack mindset kind of interior players and hold the fort kind of interior players, I think Cross can be an impact NFL player. That's why I had him at 6. But it's going to be an interesting transition if somebody expects him to be this 80% of the snaps force at nose tackle, where I'd like to see him kick around both nose at 3 tech, and I'd like to see him get his rush opportunities as a nose, but I'd like to see him in a base defense a little bit more at 3 tech.
We have a metric that we love to talk about here at PFF. Obviously not perfect, but it's something that helps quantify the value that you have regardless of your position. It's wins above average, right? I mean, it's very similar to if you are a big baseball guy. Obviously, that metric is a big part of how you evaluate baseball players, regardless of position. Howard Cross's wins above average metric for just last year, 2023, 0.28. That was the second highest wins above average number that we had of the guys that we watched this week, or at least of the 15 guys that I watched this week. The only player who was higher is, well, we'll get to him near the end of the show.
Of course.
When I look at the numbers for Howard Cross, I mean, I'm with you, 6'1" and right around, playing weights probably like 285 for him. I look at the grades, man. Well, first of all, he's playing over 600 snaps, 610 snaps in 2023. That's a good amount for a
great call out. Yeah.
He's not just this small guy that they're bringing in like every now and then. He's not.
No, he's not. He's in it. He's in it.
100% he is.
He's in the bunker looking at Rylie Mills like,
yes,
shit, here we go. Yeah.
His pass rush grade, 89.8. Pass rush grade on true pass sets, 85.6. Pass rush win rate was 90th percentile. But then, Connor, you get to run defense grade, 83.8.
Right.
For a guy who's 285.
Well, because he's disruptive.
And the way that he does it is he's so smart. He's so smart. He knows where the ball is going. He's got great instinct for where the ball is going. He's got great instincts. He's got great eyes for where the ball is going. His hands are up and inside. He is, anybody who's listening to this podcast who listened to the interior offensive line episode that we talked about, he is the defensive line version of what Parker Brailsford is, right? Where you watch him and you go, there's just no way. Like, there's no way he could succeed in the NFL. And then you just watch him continue to win in a lot of ways on tape. And it's hard to deny a player who puts out really good tape like that. I don't know how high Howard Cross is going to get drafted, because at the end of the day, 6'1", 285 pounds is 6'1", 285 pounds. And there's basically, Aaron Donald. That's who everybody likes to bring up. And it's basically
Cansey.
And Cansey's sort of in that same mold where he gives you a chance to go in the first round. But I even thought Cansey was more violent and explosive than Cross was. Not
definitely more explosive for sure. Like, Cansey's 1-on-1 in that area.
Right. And so, like, Cansey makes up for it. But I have this at the back end of my preseason scouting summary for him. Ultimately, he won't be for everyone due to his size. But it is just tough to write off players with his level of football IQ. And to me, that is just how I see Howard Cross. It's just hard to not want this guy on your football team. Whether you see him as a full-time starter at 3 technique, or whether you see him as just a rotational depth piece, you will love having him on your team. He will rarely be out of place. And And really the only things that are going to get in the way of him having success are his physical limitations. And I even think that his physical limitations are good enough to certainly draft in the mid rounds and make him a depth player. So I do like Howard Cross. The player that I thought for him was Mekhi Wingo, because it's just this like super quick player who can win immediately, who is going to struggle on the interior against power and double teams just because of his size. And people forget Wingo got hurt last year, so we didn't get to see a lot of him. But Wingo was also an Iron Man defensive lineman the year before. They played him a crap ton at LSU because of how quickly he could diagnose and get into the backfield. So I know there's probably people out there who will like Cross more than Wingo. I was a pretty big Wingo guy last year, so it's easy for me to sort of see the body type, see where they succeed, and be like, yeah, I like both of these players a lot. So that was the first guy that kind of came to mind with him.
Yeah, and you look at the fronts. I mean, there are fronts in the NFL that they don't care about that size and will rotate you in as a pass rusher. You think of the Niners, the Eagles, the Jets, the Texans come to mind. I'm sure there's a couple more as well.
Texans.
Yeah. I mean,
we might have our first Howard Cross. You are
Houston Texan.
A Houston Texan.
We might have it.
We might have it right there.
I liked him a lot.
By the way, won a state championship as a wrestler in high school. Just had to note that because we love former high school wrestlers when we talk about the trend.
I feel like, and this is definitely I feel like the high school wrestling champs all have the same aesthetic on the field. They all kind of look the same.
Do they? I don't know if I've noticed that.
But
yeah, now I'll take it forward.
They don't wear a lot of stuff in general. Like Cross wears gloves, but most of the time I know he had a brace on his arm for like one point, but he doesn't wear a brace just to wear a brace. Like it's usually just gloves with the the very, very small jersey with the sleeves rolled up. I feel like Zach Frazier kind of looked the same way. Worfs kind of looked the same way.
Just all business.
They don't have time for all of that. They don't have time for all of that.
They're here to beat the shit out of you.
Yes. Yes.
They're here to throw you out of this small
I don't
circle.
need extra pads.
They're here to pin your shoulders on the ground.
Dominate.
Okay, so
Bear Alexander.
Yeah, Bear Alexander from USC. He is 6 for me. And he is there's just a lot that goes into his evaluation. So Alexander, he's at USC now. He's a true junior going into this year. 6'3", 313 pounds. So right around the 50th percentile in height, 70th percentile when it comes to weight. So he's built really well for an interior defensive lineman, especially for the 3 technique position that he plays a lot. So he was a 4-star defensive lineman from Terrell, Texas. He ended up going to IMG for his final year of high school football, but he's from the state of Texas, won a state championship as a junior in 2020 when he was in Texas, ended up transferring to IMG, played his senior year there. Ended up choosing Georgia out of high school over Alabama, Florida, Texas A&M, as well as other schools. So he played in 12 games for Georgia as a true freshman. And then immediately after that, transferred to USC in 2023, started 12 of 13 games last year for USC. And then there were all sorts of rumors about like him being in the portal again. He didn't get in the portal. He's still at USC, but there were all sorts of rumors of that. This is, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. This is
just like trying new cities. Like
maybe he just wants to be well-traveled.
Yes.
I don't know. Give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess.
I'll jump back in the portal and
life's all about experiences, you know?
Let's go see what Penn State has. Let's check out the pizza near Rutgers. Oh man.
Just goes from Georgia to USC to Rutgers, baby.
Yeah, that'd be quite the get for Coach Schiano.
Yeah. So some stats for him from last season: 660 snaps last year, 71.2 pass rush grade, 71.5 pass rush grade on true pass sets.
That's a lot of snaps for a big fella.
Truly, yeah. Pass rush win percentage 9.7, 30th percentile. Run defense grade 63.9. Run stop percentage 18.3. That was 78th percentile. I'm just going to say it. The guy's unbelievably talented. insanely talented. I know I'm probably just absolutely shattering logic there with somebody who committed to Georgia and is now at USC, but Bear Alexander's best plays line up against basically anybody in this defensive line class. Now, we don't see it nearly as much. The consistency, and I would say the floor of this player is lower than it is for the guys that are a lot higher than him. But like strengths I have written for him, lightning quick first step, generates speed to power very easily. He's built basically perfectly for a 3-tech defensive tackle. The hands are always working to get unblocked and move forward. He's already shown a good array of pass rush moves. We've seen an arm over. We've seen rip moves. You see the speed to power. You see the bull rush. You see just a classic, just like club, a two-handed swipe. He'll have a spin counter for you. I wrote all of these things down as I was watching. He can stack and shed very quickly when he gets his hands up inside. I mean, I'm basically listing off somebody who I feel like is a very high ceiling pass rusher, and I really do believe that. Now, the weaknesses, he's got a bad habit of losing the ball in the backfield. Like sometimes the ball is just, they'll run by him and he's a second late and he'll be like, whoa, okay, hold on. I thought the quarterback had it. So better instincts for where the balls are. As a run defender, the reason why that run defense grade is 63.9 is as low as it is because his run defense strategy is let me get in the backfield. Not really like let me hold the point of attack. Let me keep my linebackers free. He's trying to get in the backfield and he's trying to make a play, which, hey, maybe his coaches are telling him to do that, but it sells the guys behind you out to dry sometimes. And we've seen that with him. So the consistency runs a little hot and cold with him. I mentioned it. He sort of struggles to hold the point of attack against really powerful offensive linemen, interior offensive linemen. But again, I wonder if that's like a stylistic thing. I don't think he lacks strength. Maybe he does, but I think it's just the fact that like he's just trying to get off the block and get into the backfield, which again, good and bad thing. There's a time and place for it. Sometimes he's just too over reliant on that as his primary method of holding the line of scrimmage. I'll tell you, I watched the Nevada game of him first, and I'm like, this dude might be Gerald McCoy. Like no joke, like shades of what we saw from Gerald McCoy was number 3 overall pick. Like, hey, this dude was really, really good. I watched the Oregon game 2 games later, and Jackson Powers Johnson is eating his lunch. Like he is just stealing this dude's soul, especially in the first quarter. Bear kind of figured it out, and he realized that he couldn't just run through or run by Jackson Powers Johnson. He actually had to kind of play him straight up. But that first quarter against JPJ was bad. I mean, like just the upper body strength of Powers Johnson was overwhelming for him, and he just was not ready for it. And that's, of course, an NFL interior offensive lineman. And so he did not play well against that test there. And so you have to note that. Ultimately as well, I'm not going to like say this as if it's like 100% fact, but have not heard the best things of how he exited Georgia and some of what he has been at USC. And if there is anything to that, if there's anything to him not being the best in the locker room or him being a headache for programs, like that stuff is going to trickle upwards to the NFL. And that stuff is obviously going to get out. And so that is something that we will have to kind of monitor with him because it's already sort of, again, I'm going to say rumors because I've never met the young man.
Right.
And I've never, I haven't talked to anybody specifically who has interacted with him. This is just sort of what we hear from reporters and people who cover both teams. And so it's worth noting. And we on this podcast, obviously, we're not going to try to just like throw anything out there that we hear. But this has been sort of a consistent theme that we heard from him when he was leaving Georgia and even so a little bit at USC. So incredibly talented football player. We'll be very interested to see if he continues to take that next step and continues to look dominant as a pass rusher this upcoming season, because if you can get in the backfield like he has shown the flashes to do, NFL teams will put up with a lot, whether there is a lot to put up with or not. I'm just saying they will put up with a lot if you can get into the backfield the way that I've seen him get into the backfield. So that's my thoughts on Bear and how he ended up number 6 for me.
Right. And just the, level of prestige as a recruit that he had, you get a longer rope. It feels like you get that longer leash.
For sure.
Obviously he was at Georgia, USC. Now with a big time programs, like it's the talent. You're harping on talent a lot. And I think that's really, really important. and we'll see how he can kind of mature and launch that talent into being a big time prospect. So he landed at 6 for you, Trevor.
He did indeed,
which really speaks to just how talented you thought he was.
Yes,
with the
yes.
with the concerns.
It's basically very hard to like quit him unless I hear in concrete, right? Like unless we get into the draft season and it's January, February, and we're hearing things from sources or people that we trust, and it's like concrete. Until then, he's a really talented football player, and it's hard to give up on that.
All right, well, I'm going to jump into number 5.
Let's do it.
Number 5 for me is a classic in between being an edge and a D-line. I had him as a D-line. He's 290 pounds right now. That's Texas A&M Shemar Turner.
Okay, so I have Turner as an edge.
He plays both.
I don't know. I don't know what he is, but I had him.
They don't either.
I'm gonna.
They don't either. When you watch,
I'm probably going to talk about him next week.
Probably. We had this problem with the tackle interior episode, so it's not the first time. That's okay.
What are you?
Oh man,
Texas A&M playing this amoeba defense.
Yeah. It really.
What are these players?
It's screwing up the show.
Develop the young men.
Texas A&M is single-handedly trying to destroy the show from within. Shemar Turner, senior, 6'3", about 290. He does play like legitimately edge all the way to nose tackle. And it's not that, he had 3 nose tackle snaps or 7 edge snaps. Legitimately, a lot of the time, just plays all over the place. Because as Trevor said, A&M has these athletes, and they're just putting them all up and down the line of scrimmage. He's a 2-year starter. He finished last year with 10.5 TFLs, 6 sacks, so the production's there. He is just so unique in the way he moves for his size, Trevor. That's why I like him in this group. I think as an edge player, it's not that he's not exciting, because he has some really nice wins off the edge. Like I wrote, when they let him rush off the edge, he can dip and turn the corner. He can get under the outside shoulder of tackles and turn his body into the pocket. It's not full freakish bend, but at his size, it's good enough to collapse into the pocket that way. And the way he moves, the change of direction with him is just an absolute nightmare for offensive linemen trying to kind of mirror with him. The footwork, the way he can kind of turn his upper body to swivel into the pocket. He's quick off the ball, so he's already kind of dictating the rep. And when you're dictating the rep and then you are making a move before the offensive lineman is comfortable in his pass set, I mean, that's a recipe for success, a translatable skill. I didn't see a lot of weaknesses in his game, to be honest with you. The number one question I have that I'm trying to figure out is exactly where his best place to play at the NFL level is. Mm-hmm. Is it consistently as an end? Do you go to a defense that early downs, you might be playing more on the end, but hey, we do a little bit more of a NASCAR package and we're going to kick you into 3-tech or nose tackle because you're quick enough you're just so quick, you beat guards and centers that way, where we place a premium on you because you can play up and down the line of scrimmage with your athleticism. But he is an extremely, extremely disruptive player. And the fact that he's disruptive from wherever they put him, it's not just one place that you need to kind of tailor that for him to have success. That's why I liked him so much. I would say he was the biggest surprise on the list. The next 4 guys, I was like, yeah, I expected them to be really good. But Shemar Turner, I was like, okay, let's see what we have here. Because like you, I didn't know if I should watch him now. I didn't know if I should watch. So I got to look at him. And I really just kept watching him because I liked him so much.
Yeah.
So very, very disruptive. I think you said this about a previous player, maybe Bear Alexander. Losing players in the backfield, I think, was a common problem for a lot of these talented pass rushers in this group.
Yeah.
That pops up at times. Okay. And it's, once again, we can't harp on enough. Like this defense, it allows guys to be a little bit more aggressive at times and play on an island, but very, very skilled up as a pass rusher from wherever you want to have him put his hand in the dirt.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's, we've said this before on this show. It's sort of a phrase that I like to talk about when I talk about defensive linemen. We talk about versatility a lot, and being versatile is a good thing, but there's a difference between being versatile and being homeless, right? If
Yeah.
you don't have a home base, when I draft you at the NFL level, sometimes like that could just be, I mean, that could sometimes derail careers before they even begin. If you don't have a home base, if you don't have a place where, if I'm trying you at 5 technique, or if I'm trying you at 3 technique, or I'm trying you at nose or 4 eye as a 3-4 defensive end, whatever it is, if I don't have okay, we're going to try this, but if it doesn't work, we can always lean back on this. You are at least good enough here at this position. It's a dangerous game when you start to play that. Yeah, he's versatile. He can play everywhere. Okay, but can he play
Anything.
one
The
play
NFL.
at
Yeah.
an NFL level? Because that to me is really important. So, when you're talking about Turner, the teams that come to mind, teams like Buffalo, Baltimore, New Orleans, I would say as well. Philadelphia, you mentioned Seattle now with Mike McDonald. Like
Oh
these are
yeah.
teams that could have a really deep pass rush rotation. You mentioned the Jets too. I think the Jets are one of them as well. That you would take this guy because you've got such a solidified defensive line in front of you, and you'll probably have some sort of like plan for them where you can play them in a variety of different spots, and
Yeah.
you don't have to lean too much on them when it comes to value. They're just more of a depth piece.
Think of John Franklin Myers, who was a draft pick by the Rams. He was a waiver claim by the Jets. He got traded to Denver this offseason. He's on a massive contract. He plays at the same size as Turner and does the same exact thing, where you'll play him at end, you'll kick him in on passing downs. Like that's the mold. I know there's other guys in the league doing that. That's the one that resonates obviously with me.
Right. You've seen a lot of them.
Yeah. So,
all right. So 5 for me is TJ Sanders from South Carolina.
So I did not. We talked off the air. This is a player I did not watch. I watched his teammate, the Tonka truck.
Yeah, Tonka Hemingway.
Yes.
Yeah. Is he in your top 5?
He's not.
Okay. He's lower for me. I think Tonka is pound for pound really damn strong. He's like 288, and I think that he's like a run stopping, like somebody who could actually take on double teams like pretty damn well. But he's outside of my top 10, but that's the role that I saw for him. His teammate, however, TJ Sanders, I might be the biggest TJ Sanders fan in the world at this point. I feel like not a lot of people are talking about him. He was a redshirt sophomore last year. And after I watched the Georgia game where South Carolina played Georgia, I think it was week 3 or 4 of the season, I was like, who's 90? Like, let's start getting some information here. Are you draft eligible? Redshirt sophomore, he was draft eligible. Now, I figured he wasn't going to leave because unless he had an absolute monster season, I didn't think South Carolina was going to have too monster of a season as the year went on. I figured that he would be back for another year. He is. But I scouted him a little bit last year, and I felt like I was high on him last year. And so this year is sort of the same thing for me. He's 6'5". He's 295 pounds. So he's got the height. He's got the length. He's a little shy of 300 pounds, but I think that actually gives him some pretty good versatility. So former 3-star defensive end, okay, 6'5". You figure, all right, it makes sense that he was a defensive end recruit. They have since kicked him inside. He played both defensive line and tight end when he was in high school. Also played basketball. Averaged a double-double in high school. So my guy's got true multi-sport abilities. And he was the 6A player of the year in his state in South Carolina. So redshirted his first year, only played in 2 games. Played in 12 games the year after that, but it was in sparingly. And then he started 7 games last season. So the PFF grades for him, nothing super stands out to me. He's more of like a traits, a developmental, a ceiling type of a guy. You look at the pass rush grades, regular pass rush grade 72.4, true pass sets 74.4, pass rush win percentage just 7.2. It's only 15th percentile, so that obviously could be better. Run defense grade 96, or sorry, 96.
96.
Yeah, he's the Incredible Hulk. Actually, I was hiding that. I was burying the lead. Run defense grade 69, nice 0.6. Run stopping percentage 10.6%. That, however, is 94th percentile. I will just say, I really like his potential. This is somebody who I'm betting on in a big way. The flashes of what they have the ability to do. Strengths for me, again, remember, he's got the longer frame. He's a little bit lighter, so he's a little bit more explosive. He's got quick hands to both engage and get off blocks. I think he did a really good job getting off blocks quickly when offensive linemen got hands on him. Really plus arm length for an interior player, gives guards and centers pretty fits. This is something that I noted. Really competitive player on third down. And again, like that is a X factor element of who they are as a player that I will go, okay, I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to put this in bold. Because if you show up on third down, there's a reason why I watch rivalry games.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason why when we have all of the games to watch, because thankfully, you know, the PFF gods have set it up to where we have ultimate on every single game for all of these guys. But we're not going to watch every game in the season the previous year. I will gravitate towards rivalry games and games in which a championship is on the line. Division championship, college football playoff, something. What are you like when you play the team that you hate, that you've had all year to work up towards the end of the season? And what do you like when you're playing for a championship? And I think who you are on third down, especially as a defensive lineman, that is in the same family of how you play. So the fact that I really noticed how competitive of a player he was on third down, that stood out to me. He's got a pretty explosive first step, although I think his base is wider than it needs to be. He explodes laterally very quickly because his base is really wide, but I would almost rather him sort of take his feet in, be a little bit more narrow, have a little bit more linear explosion, being able to get up the field a little bit faster, because I think I see it there. He is somebody who doesn't really hold up well against doubles right now, so he's more of just a 3 technique pass rusher type of a player. When it comes to wrapping guys up in the backfield, he's letting them out of his hands a little bit too often. Want to see that a little bit more for him. He also gives up his leverage way too easily. He's 6'5", so it's sort of natural for him to do that. But if he can keep the pad level down, I think he gets low in his stance. He just pops up very quickly because he wants to use his hands. He wants to get to a club rip. He wants to get to an arm over. He wants to really get into the backfield, but sometimes he sacrifices leverage way sooner than he needs to. But this is just it's a potential type of player here, Connor, and I'm excited for you to finally watch him because I want to know if I'm just crazy. Like if I'm on an island, and if I am on an island, I'm still okay with it. But I just feel like not enough people are talking about Sanders. I see more people talking about Hemingway because he is the older player there on that defensive line. Maybe it's just because he was only a redshirt sophomore last year, but TJ Sanders is somebody to watch for me because I think he's got a pretty high ceiling in what he does.
I'm excited, honestly. It's crazy. I watched his teammate and didn't get eyes on him. Obviously an underclassman that it sounds like could have a massive breakout year from those traits that he has that you're describing, like more traits than Hemingway.
Yes, I would say that. Yes. Yeah. That's why he's a lot higher on the list for me.
Okay. So that was 5 for you, a guy I did not watch. And 5 for me. You didn't watch Turner yet. You're going to have Turner as an edge.
Correct.
That's kind of interesting.
You're going to have a player in your top 5 who I did not have in my top 8.
Is that right?
Yeah.
My top 4, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that right?
I think it's this player. I think it's the player that you're going to name next.
Kenneth Grant?
Oh, no, it's not Kenneth. You have a player in your top 3 who's not in my top 8?
Wow.
Whoa.
Well, then who do you have? That's what I'm more curious about.
People are just going to have to stick around and find out.
No, just kidding.
Just like 30 minutes of ads. Right.
You're just hammering the skip button, just begging to get on with it. Now I have Kenneth Grant at 4.
Okay.
Who is very good.
I also have Kenneth Grant in my top 5.
Oh, I figured. I would have been I'm really surprised anyway. But especially Grant, it's funny with Grant because you almost feel like he doesn't get the attention he deserves, although he's in our top 4s, so he is on this show, because we do speak up for the people.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the defense he plays in, where it's just superstar everywhere.
Yeah.
But Kenneth Grant is phenomenal.
Yes, he is.
If I have this right, 6'3", 339.
6'3", 339 is also what I have him at.
You're not supposed to move like this at 339.
Nope.
That I do know is basic physics. Last year, and this is a former 3-star recruit that played guard in high school. He also played guard. He played D-line as well, but
Yeah.
also played guard in high school.
Also shot put in track. Just want to shout out.
That's
Said
a
we shout
very
out again.
that is a good note. That is a very good note. I mean, man, when you jump into the strengths, this is true nose tackle, shade nose size and experience. Brings the beef in the middle of the defensive line.
Yeah, baby.
How did this group have... Well, they won a national title, so that's the answer. I guess that explains a lot.
How did the national champions
have Chris Jenkins, Mason Graham, and Kenneth Grant?
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, it is sick.
It's absolutely stupid. Like Junior Colson, who I loved more than anyone, had these guys in front of him where he was like, okay, cool, I could just be a heat-seeking missile at all times.
I'm trying to look up Michigan's 2021 depth chart. No. It's got to be 2022 to just see if it has like the wildest group of defensive linemen you've ever seen.
It becomes the old Washington coaching staff.
Yeah.
Where it's like McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur, on and on it goes. It becomes the version of that for a college defensive front.
Yeah, Michigan had Mozzie Smith, Mason Graham, Chris Jenkins, Kenneth Grant, Cam Good, Braden McGregor.
Aiden Hutchinson had to be on that team.
I think he just got drafted.
Oh, okay. So you went with 22 instead of 21. You said,
yeah, because if I go back to 21, I don't get Mason Graham.
Yeah, that's the trade.
An important piece of the puzzle.
He might help a little bit. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so he is so good at holding the point of attack against double teams. Kenneth Grant, phenomenal. Honestly, like he uses all 339 pounds to go. Okay. You will not move the line of scrimmage against us because I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got a sneaky swim move.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, it's not, okay, let's just go through some of the guys I watched.
You've been watching Michael Phelps tape.
You're right. There you go. Kenneth Grant is in the lab watching Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps if he played nose tackle.
He also clearly eats like him. Have you ever seen what Michael Phelps eats?
Yeah, it's like 10,000 calories.
He goes to the diner and he like sits at the table for 6 to 8 people, and it's all food for him. And it doesn't matter. It all wipes off.
10,000 calories a day, and like 6,000 calories of it's pancakes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He truly can eat whatever the hell he wants.
I gotta start swimming.
I've tried more this summer. Yeah, it's not working for me like it did for Michael.
Phelps. I gotta get into being a record-breaking Olympian swimmer,
an all-time Olympian.
I gotta get into that.
The United States.
I gotta commit. I just gotta commit. I gotta get into it.
Phelps could truly eat like 40 pancakes, a pizza, spaghetti.
Dude, he's giving Chestnut a run for his money.
And so can Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant is the next Michael Phelps, a great American. The clip of him chasing down Katron Allen on Penn State.
Holy
what
shit.
Is this?
Harbaugh said, I think Harbaugh after the game said, that might be the best play I've ever seen in my life.
It's up there for me. It doesn't make sense. It defies all logic. Allen is not slow, the Penn State running back.
Yeah.
Kenneth Grant, we might have this Kenneth Grant moment at the Combine where we were all watching. Who are some big guys that our jaws just kind of dropped when they ran? Mekhi Becton ran really well for his size.
Yeah, he did, actually.
He ran really well for his size, where you were like, that's not supposed to happen. Kenneth Grant might...
by the way, just for speed, because we're talking about it. So we are starting to track things athletic-wise more at PFF. So we have an athletic score that guys get.
Chipped all of the players.
Yeah.
The evil empire of PFF has chipped every college athlete in the country. College football player.
Yeah, except it's in their body, though.
No, they don't know it.
Yeah, it's like the mark of the beast.
They have no idea. So go on.
So his athletic score last year, 6'3", 339 pounds. Now, obviously, like weight goes into it a little bit here. 85.2. Connor, he had 8 runs last year where he hit more than 15 miles an hour.
It's just ridiculous. There's just
Man's 340.
This happening on planet Earth is not. It's not supposed to. Everybody does this bullshit where they're like, well, if the aliens show up, like, who's the best team you feel you have to win a game against them? Just throw Kenneth Grant out there. They'll go home. They go home. They go, nope, we're good. We've seen enough. We have water and air where we live. Oh, you got to win a game against the aliens. Who's the team you field? Oh, I'm so afraid.
You know, the comp that I should have written down for him is the purple monster from the purple Monstar from Space Jam.
Yes.
That's really what I should have.
It's actually like spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on. Yeah, he's awesome. I think, I wrote down one little weakness note for him is that I think the pad level, it got a little high against the run at times. There's times where he's such a big guy.
Yeah.
That there's times where you're like, okay, just keep those pads down, where it kind of can have him drift a little out of plays, but he's everything you want from a nose tackle right in the middle of your defense.
So I have him 2.
Yeah, I get it. People listening to me are like, how do you have him at 4?
Yeah, he's 2 for me. I agree with so much of what you said, man. I think that he is such a uniquely built nose tackle. And I think I believe that he fills more of the traditional nose tackle role than you would want for the other player that we're going to mention here in a couple of minutes, who most people are going to have as either 1 or 2 in this class. But when I look at Kenneth Grant, I think Kenneth Grant is the right amount of finesse. I think he is still a bully in the middle. I think he is a true nose type of 0 or 1 technique type of player. He could play 3 technique for you if you want to get creative for it. You absolutely can. But especially if you want to line him up as a 3 technique type of a player, you can crash him into the guard on a stunt. And you can, I saw this multiple times, they're letting Mason Graham loop around behind him, and Mason Graham sort of starting at the 1 and Kenneth Grant starting at the 3, and he's crashing inside and Graham's kind of looping around. And he's getting into the backfield pretty free. And it's because of the explosiveness that Grant has at 340 pounds. Now, the unique part about him is his build is a little strange. He's a little slender in like the calves and the ankles, but it doesn't really show up that much when it comes to balance issues for him. So it's not that big of a deal for me.
Just get implants.
Sure, yeah.
It's not consulting firm all over again for the combine. Kenneth, calf implants. You will go top 8. It's not as good as our steroid plan.
Steroids, calf implants. That's the ranking of how you move up when it comes to combine week.
Something to think about.
I just think, again, he's the right amount of finesse, because I think we get carried away as a society with nose tackles that we like being finesse players. We like it when nose tackles have a little bit of extra pass rush juice, but I feel as though over the last handful of years, there has sometimes been these interior defensive linemen who they are such finesse players when they're supposed to be still run defenders at heart. And Grant, to me, is, again, the perfect blend of he's still a massive interior nose tackle. He just happens to give you extra pass rush juice. He just happens to also give you the right amount of finesse that you would want. His priorities aren't messed up, if you will. They're not flipped in a bad way. So the comp that I came up with for Kenneth Grant, BJ Raji, because I felt like Raji was the same way when he was playing prime Raji for the Packers. He was their nose tackle guy who could play in the middle of that defense, but Raji would also give you the karate hands and get off the block and get into the backfield, and all of a sudden he's in the quarterback's lap immediately. So that was the first guy, or not the first guy, but that was the guy I settled on when I thought about what Grant does well as a blend of power and speed. So I have him at number 2.
That just reminded me, that Boston College team that Raji was on, I feel like was an absolute unit in NCAA football. The team as a whole.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I use that team quite a bit. BJ Raji, wow. I see the body type for sure.
Little throwback for you.
That is a nice throwback. Okay, so okay. Go
4
ahead.
for me.
Well, you had Grant at 2, so who's 4?
4 is Dontay Corleone, the Godfather.
Okay.
So
I got nose tackles.
Yeah. So 6'1", 320 pounds. You talked about Corleone a little bit. The reason why we didn't dive too deep into him is because, I knew that we would talk about him here. Corleone's awesome, man. A former 3-star recruit from Cincinnati, Ohio, goes to Cincinnati. Didn't play as well last year. Pass rush grade 79.3. Pass rush grade on true pass set 68.7. Run defense grades were still really strong, 80.4. Run stop percentage 8.4, 79th percentile. But if you go back to last year, I'm kind of cherry picking. I'm cheating a little bit here. If you go back to 2022, 93.8 overall defensive grade. He was one of the highest graded defensive players in the country. 94.7 run defense grade alone in 2022. This dude can absolutely hold the point of attack. Some strengths for him. Really impressive speed with his hands and good placement as well to win reps consistently and quickly. Great natural leverage at 6'1", 320 pounds. He's got that like fire hydrant build, but he's got those low pads. He's consistently the low man winning that way. Powerful lower body for great leg drive once he wins with leverage. He's got that quick first step to also be able to shoot gaps. So he's not just a run stuffer in the middle. He can give you good pass rush penetration there as well. Good eyes in run defense. He knows where the ball is going. Now some weaknesses for him. The height hints at the arm length being below average, and I think that that's going to be true, right? He's not going to beat anybody with a long arm move or anything like that. And when you have shorter arms, it's not just the fact that you can't long arm somebody. It also makes it more difficult to get off blocks. When we talk about club ripping somebody, really being able to rip them and get all the way around the offensive lineman's outside shoulder. When you have shorter arms, you are less disruptive when you are making that move. It is easier to latch onto you. It's easier to hold onto you. And then offensive linemen can sort of ride that momentum a little bit easier when you don't have those long arms to be able to clear the offensive lineman's arm. So because of that, it's a little bit tougher for him to disengage when he's going to that move. He needs a little bit more pass rush moves and counters beyond just the power rush that he has. Sometimes he'll give you a nice little bull rush. Sometimes he'll bull rush the first step, gives you a little push pull, a little stack and shed, and throwing the guy to the side. I love when he can time that up really well, but I think he needs a little bit more when it comes to those finesse moves and trying to stay a little bit cleaner. But again, the lack of arm length sort of goes into the limitation of how well he'd be able to do that. I think that he's a great 3-4 nose tackle. He is somebody who, again, gives you a little bit of finesse for a player who has really high run defense scores over the last couple of years. I just didn't think that he did it to the level that Grant does. And that's why I've got Corleone at number 4 and Grant at number 2. But they are similar players in that you like what they bring in run defense and you like the plus ability that they can give you as a pass rusher. I just think that Grant's a little bit more Corleone is a little bit more limited in that regard. But you mentioned it. He had a little bit of a scare with blood clots earlier this summer. The report is that he's been back at practice. It looks like he's going to be able to play this year. We really hope that for him, not just because, selfishly, we would love to see him play as draft evaluators, but of course, just personally with his health overall, to live a long and happy life with that. So Corleone coming in at number 4 for me.
Corleone, I mean, obviously the best name in this group. The Godfather is
Godfather.
It's so perfect. I totally agree with you. I thought 2022, he was a nightmare. And there was a little bit of a step back of last year's film. Not a drastic one. The only real thing that dropped him a little bit for me, Trevor, besides you brought up the physical limitations at times, is I was really disappointed in his game against Zach Frazier in West Virginia.
Oh, I didn't watch that one.
I jumped to it after it was the last game I watched.
That one.
It was the last game I watched to him, and he just couldn't get anything going, in my opinion. Where I was like, okay, I'm not writing you off. I still have Corleone in my top 8 in a good
but it's a big test.
It was a game where I wanted to see a little something, and I didn't think there was a lot there. But the 2 years of legit production, that nose tackle mass. He's another guy so hard to move off the line of scrimmage. He just holds the point of attack. There's wrecking ball power there. So I totally understand why you really, really like him. 3 for me. I think this is who's not going to be in your top 8. Tyleik Williams?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's 9 for me.
Okay. I'll jump right into it.
Please.
Ohio State fans, they're going to be on your ass because you didn't have who am I forgetting? Donovan Jackson as one of your top guards. I think.
Hold on. I had Ibuka at 3. I had Henderson at 5. I had Quinshon at 1.
The best. Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, I was. So I was lower on Jackson going into last year. I'm a little bit higher on him now, so he's getting better.
I'm just telling you to batten down the hatches. I'm not.
Wait, they can't be mad at me. I had Josh Simmons at like 4.
This is true. They can't be mad at you. That's the rules.
Not allowed to.
Tyleik Williams, who Trevor despises, he's his new Tyree Wilson. Ohio State senior, 6'2.5", 325. I would say I have him and Kenneth Grant tied right here at like 4 and 3. I thought the same. If I was doing grades, they would have the same exact grade, and they're both in the first round for me. With Tyleik, he's appeared in 38 games for this team over the last 3 years. Former 4-star recruit out of Virginia. He plays with just really good strength. He carries a ton of mass, top to bottom, head to toe, and he plays with excellent strength. His hands arrive with force that I thought looked a lot different than other players. Like, there's a jolt when his hands arrive on blockers. And when it's time to grind it out against the run, this guy understands how to stack and shed. He understands how to fight into the backfield. He, chases plays from the backside. He wears out blockers throughout the course of a game. And he's a classic, doesn't get to fill the stat sheet. He constantly funnels the run somewhere else. I will say, I thought he was a more polished run defender in terms of disruption than Grant. I thought Grant showed the better pass rush upside. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm fascinated to watch, how these guys distinguish themselves from me throughout the year. Tyleik had a 7.8% pass rush win rate last year. And I think there's much needed context for his role. I didn't see him in this Ohio State defense being asked to just pin his ears back and raise hell all the time. But I still think that's a little low, even for that context. I think it was a tad low. I don't expect him to be at 14, 15, but that was just a little low for me because the pass rush plan is basically pocket pushing power.
Yes.
And he's got to develop ways to counter off of blocks.
And that's the big thing for me. And honestly, why he's 9 is I just, if he did not win with it. Now, look, here's the strengths. And I probably see a lot of the strengths very similarly to the way that you do. Compact, powerful stance pre-snap, has the frame to play both nose tackle and 3 technique, explosive first step to shoot some gaps and get across the face. And I think that he's strong against the run. So like those are things that I think he does well. The problem is that I watched 3 full games of him from 2023. I did not really see him win at all if he didn't win with his first step. If he in any way got into a matchup of strength with an interior offensive lineman, if both players got hands on the other cleanly, Tyleik would maybe push them back like a couple of feet with a leg drive. There's nothing there.
He's got to counter. He's got to learn how to counter.
There wasn't a pass rush plan. There wasn't pass rush moves. There were no pass rush counters. He was not enough for me after the first second of the play. First second of the play, I can see a lot of the promise. But if he did not win cleanly in that first second, to me, there was not enough there consistently over the 3 games that I watched. And it worried me. And it also worries me because I don't know what his comfortable weight is. Because we mentioned this last year, I think, when we talked about Tyleik. But for anybody that wasn't listening last year, new, shout out. Appreciate you subbing. Appreciate you listening.
Hit subscribe on the way out.
Please. Our families are starving. He's a 4-star defensive tackle. His senior season of high school was canceled due to COVID. So he went from his junior year of high school, didn't play football, and then he gets to Ohio State. Played in 12 games as a true freshman. Then he played in all 13 games in 2022. Played in a bunch of games last year. I don't have the number in front of me. By Williams' own account, when he did not have his senior season of high school football, he let himself go and he showed up to Ohio State at 360 pounds. Now, granted, they have him listed at 327 now. So he showed up at 360. Then he played that first year at like 350, 360. He was basically just trying to get back into shape. The following year, I believe Ohio State had him listed around like 320, 325 as a sophomore. And then last year they had him listed at 290, which was a complete lie. There's not a chance he's 290. You turn on any game last year and you go, that guy's not 290. Not a chance in hell. So now they have him listed at 327. Was last year's weight an error, or is he just like fluctuating weight this heavily? Does he have the ability to get his weight into control? I'm not putting a lot of weight into this.
297 is what they have him listed as?
No, did I say 297?
I was wondering what they have him now. I have him at 325, and I think that's verified.
They listed him 290 last year.
There's no way.
There's not a chance in hell.
There's no way.
And now he's listed at 327. Yes. So I think that's his comfortable weight anyways, but has he been fluctuating weight this whole time? Is he able to hone in on his weight to be able to play this position like we saw last year? So I sort of have some weight questions about him, whether or not this is what his true weight is going to be at, or whether it's going to be higher, whether it's going to be lower, depending on how comfortable he is to where you can get to a place where he's going to be consistent with his weight. But ultimately, man, there are things to like about Tyleik Williams. I'm in no way, shape, or form writing him off. But as of right now,
you took him out of the mock draft machine.
I did. He's not. I deleted his entire profile. I took his player ID. You can't even find it in premium stats. I don't care if you pay $500 a year for PFF premium stats. I'm not giving it back to you. He has to be so much more than what I saw last year after the first step. And that's why there were just too many other guys who I liked as the play went on with counters or pass rush moves or even in run defense than I did for Tyleik. So maybe I'm the biggest hater in the world, but I needed to see more from him going into this year.
So who'd you have at 3?
I have Deone Walker at 3 from Kentucky.
Okay, that's who I have at 2, so that's kind of easy.
I figured that would be the case. So Deone Walker from Kentucky, one of the most uniquely built individuals I've ever seen play football.
I would agree.
So he is a true junior. He's listed at 6'6", which is 96th percentile for an interior defensive lineman. 348, which is 98th percentile. So 96th percentile, 98th percentile in size. And also, like, that arm length is a massive plus as well. It's not like he's just 6'6" with short arms. I mean, he's got long arms too. 4-star defensive lineman from Detroit, Michigan, coming out of the 2022 recruiting class. Played defensive line, but he also played offensive tackle as a senior. Also played basketball in high school, as you would expect.
Played center,
If he did not play basketball in high school, the basketball coach at whatever high school he went to needs to be fired and banned from coaching in any part of the state. Chose Kentucky over Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Michigan, amongst other schools. I'm very curious as to what you thought about Walker, because I think I'm a little bit lower on him than what it sounds like a lot of other people are. Like, people talk about Walker in the same conversation as Mason Graham, like they could be like number 1 overall or top 5 picks. And
that's projecting.
I didn't see that from even what we saw from Walker last year. But what did you think of him? And I'll kind of bounce off of what you think of him.
I agree with you. I think he's really unpolished right now, is what I thought when watching him play. When you're looking for the body type, he's like a heavier Michael Brockers.
The body type doesn't make sense, man.
It doesn't make sense to me. Brockers is a guy that's about 6 feet 6 inches tall, like Walker, but Brockers played about 325, not 348. So he's even heavier than him. There's not a lot of people built like this.
Wait, this just came to my mind. He's built like Muhammad Wilkerson.
He is built like Wilkerson.
But Wilkerson had way bigger calves and ankles.
And Wilkerson wasn't that tall. Right?
Yeah, but he looked like he was that tall.
He did.
Right?
Well, Wilkerson
had super long arms.
He had such long arms.
And he had a little bit of fat in the gut.
Yep.
Which Walker does. But dude, Walker's calves and ankles are so small. There's no way anybody who's 348's ever had like this sort of build in the NFL.
Implants. It's time.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
This is a booming business. Mo Wilkerson had 97th percentile arm length.
That immediately came to my head when you were talking about.
He was just shorter than Walker. He was 6'4", but there's a lot here, and why people are maybe even projecting him as the top guy in this group. and I use the word projection very specifically. He's a former 4-star out of Detroit, Michigan, right?
Yep.
Like you said, Trevor, athletic background, played center on his high school basketball team. Did you know he's a lefty?
No.
Yeah. That's what Kentucky
Oh.
writes in his bio. He's a lefty,
A little southpaw.
which is really interesting as a southpaw when you're a defensive lineman, because not everybody expects you to throw your left, do everything reverse, right?
It's actually a good point.
It's really unique. So not really unique, but really interesting when you're built like this and you're a lefty. It's a little alien, kind of stuff. Team captain as a true sophomore, that jumped out to me right away. That's not very common.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, team captain as a true sophomore. Productive, 7.5 sacks, 12.5 tackles for a loss. I did think some of the sacks were, kind of chaotic plays that the quarterback ran into him a little bit, but still at 7.5 sacks. He's got that wrecking ball power, the unique size, the natural tools, size, length, mass, athleticism. He could set up an arm over because he's so damn tall.
Yeah.
I thought he got a lot more confident in his raw power the later the season went, where he started to blast through double teams. I didn't see that the first half of the season. The second half of the season, when he felt a double was coming towards him, he knew how to kind of blast through it or hold the point of attack much better, much improved. He counters blockers by spinning off of them, which at his size is kind of a marvel to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's really good at the counter spin.
Very good at the counter spin. And those long arms, he doesn't bat a lot of passes down, but they're disruptive. He forces quarterbacks to change arm angles because it's like setting up a door in front of the pocket at times when he puts his arms up when he's rushing. So that's where the raw ability really comes into play here, where he's just born this way. Now, a lot of people have these tools. The weaknesses, he comes off the ball high and out of control quite a bit. Like, it's just out of control.
Yep.
He gets stuck on blocks against the run, especially in the zone running game, I noticed, where when it's a downhill man running attack, it's I'm stronger, I'm bigger, I can pinball my way through this. In the zone game, where it's requiring a little bit more vision and timing and read and reacting, he wasn't as sharp getting through blocks. And I think the pass rush plan, as much as there are some flashes of the arm over, spinning off of guys, it still lacks a plan and refinement. He's kind of out there being the bully on the schoolyard, which, guess what? There's a lot of guys in the NFL that do that as well. They're just bigger and stronger and quicker than everyone else. But I thought there was a gap for him in my number one guy, a pretty clear gap.
He wins a lot right now off of just being unique.
Yeah. And, the NFL is going to drool over this guy. By the way.
I'm not saying that like that can't also succeed at the NFL level, but I do think that he still needs more refinement. And what I would emphasize most is I think he needs to emphasize as much added flexibility as he can possibly get.
Yeah.
Start doing yoga just once a week, build up to 2 times, 3 times a week. You'll be teaching yoga class in no time. All right. Hot yoga, goat yoga. I don't care what it is. Just get a little bit of extra flexibility, because you mentioned 6'6", it can have its advantages, certainly with the arm length, but it also has its natural disadvantages because a lot of times you're going up against smaller guards and guards who have a little bit wider of stances, so they're sitting a lot lower, or centers who are obviously naturally much lower as well. And no matter who you are, go watch Parker Brailsford tape. Parker Brailsford is the textbook example of leverage is king. Low man wins. It is not just a phrase that you hear and that coaches say just because. It's because it is true. And when you give up as much natural leverage as Walker does, it's just a little bit of a concern. And again, he can make up for it at the college level right now with that spin move that he has and the arm over, and sometimes just, getting, length and being able to create that separation with those guys and kind of like push them on their heels and everything like that. But at the NFL level, a lot of these interior offensive line players, they're quicker, they're smarter, they're stronger. So you're not just going to be able to win because of the unique gifts the way that he does at Kentucky right now. So yeah, and his weaknesses, I have not a lot of weight in his lower half. So when he gets into leg drive battles, he's got a ton of strength in his upper half. But when he starts to get in leg drive battles against some of these interior offensive linemen, the good ones can sometimes stonewall him, even with him being at 348. And I think that's because he just doesn't have a lot of mass, a lot of muscle in his lower half. So that's something to think about there. High-waisted build. This is the flexibility part that I was talking about. The high-waisted build makes it tougher for him to sit in his stance and really get leverage off of the snap. If there's a world where he can get some added, hamstring, groin, hip flexor flexibility where he can sit a little bit lower in that stance and fire off the ball, then all of a sudden I think that a lot of things start to get better for him, just even naturally. And then you talk about, having a little bit more of a refined pass rush plan and being able to get in the backfield a little bit more quickly, I think is important for him. So not a refined player, but a very uniquely gifted player, a talented player. And like you said, somebody who I think this is a first round guy. Like I really do. Like even in his current state, I think this is a late first, early second round type of a player. That's the grade I would give him right now. But the NFL is going to look at him and say, man, what we can do with this guy could be unbelievable. And you see guys who are uniquely gifted get drafted a lot higher. So I'm very excited to watch him this upcoming season, a little bit more of a plan from him. And you could see, obviously, a player with a lot of special gifts, and we could see some fun things from him.
Without a doubt. Physically gifted player.
Number one.
I
knew I believed in you. I had faith all along.
Wait, did you do a number 2?
Yeah, Kenneth Graham was number 2. Yeah.
My brain just hit the pause button. The power went out. Number 1, I did it. I made it. I didn't disappoint you.
I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of you. Mason Graham, the
really happy Walter Nolan is number 1.
Of course, yes. That is, your boy Nazir Stackhouse.
I was just going to say Stackhouse. He's the perfect guy to say.
So Mason Graham, we've talked about him a little bit already here on this podcast. He is my interior defensive lineman number 1. He is your interior defensive lineman number 1. He is a true junior this year, 6'3", 318 pounds. So again, right around the 50th percentile in height, 81st percentile in weight. The arm length probably going to be a little bit shorter for Graham than that 50th percentile of height, but that's okay. 4-star interior defensive lineman from Anaheim, California. Played both offensive and defensive line when he was in high school. Love that. Was also a wrestler on the varsity team for 4 years in high school where he won 2 state championships. We love to see that. So he's got the wrestling background. He's got the offensive line background. And Connor, this is just a special football player.
Yeah.
442 snaps last year. 84.8 pass rush grade, 90.0 pass rush grade on true pass sets, pass rush win rate of 16.4, which was 98th percentile, run defense grade of 87.8, run stopping percentage of 11.9, 96th percentile. And like I talked about with Howard Cross, there was only one player who had a higher wins above average than he did, and it was indeed Mason Graham, who was a 0.30. The highest wins above replacement value metric that we had for an interior defensive lineman going into the season. So what'd you think of him? Give me some film breakdown notes and I'll kind of go off you.
There's a chance he's the best player in the draft, honestly. I mean, you said all the background stuff, nailed it. Big time wrestling background, twitched up, active hands, strong enough to take on double teams, angles his body and shows off great flexibility to shoot gaps. Wide array of moves, including, but not limited to, two-handed swipe, spin move, the grip strength to execute the push-pull. The 2023 film against both Alabama and Washington, the biggest games of the year, he stood out. He's the guy that jumps out on tape.
Yup.
That said everything I needed to know about Mason Graham, is that when it's time to go win a natty, your 2 toughest games of the year, arguably, I'm going to be one of the best players on the field. He's probably my highest ranked player right now.
I have to believe he's going to be player 1. There's actually a couple of corners that maybe
corner class and safety class and
could contend for player 1 before it's all said and done. But Mason Graham will absolutely be in consideration for the top player on my board going into the season.
Yeah, for sure. You just feel good about this one.
Yes.
That's the kind of prospect you look at and you go, okay, I don't really see this not working.
The strengths that I have for him: elite first step explosiveness, excellent bend and flexibility for an interior player. I mean, he is a extremely quick
Yep.
Stunt player. Like if he's ever the looper on a stunt, or they'll even put him at 5 technique and he can get around the edge on offensive tackles, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Super fast and powerful hands, devastating push-pull move, really strong player who can hold the line and discard offensive linemen at will. The only weakness I really have for this dude, arms appeared be a little bit shorter, but like he makes up for it so well. My preseason scouting blurb for him: Graham is a very impressive defensive line recruit. Though he's a tad shorter, he has ideal weight for a versatile interior defender who can align anywhere from a 5 tech all the way to a shade nose. His blend of power and speed has all pro potential. His hands and power make him hard to stay in front of in run defense and pass rush. First step explosiveness and flexibility plus the bend make him one of the best one-gapping players in the country. Arms appear to be a tad shorter, but the plays where that shows up as a negative are few and far between. He has the potential to be a top 5 pick. You know, he reminded me of, this is a little bit of a throwback, and I had a little bit of help from Mock Draftable to kind of jar this name from my memory, and then I went and looked at some film and I actually liked it. Leroy Glover.
Wow, that is a throwback.
And dude, Leroy was it took him a little bit of time to figure it out. I mean, he was a 5th round pick in 1996. He played for the Raiders for 1 year. Then played for the Barcelona Dragons in 1997. And then when he got to New Orleans in, what year was this? 1997?
Yeah.
Yeah, later in the 1997 season, he just went off.
Yep.
I mean, those New Orleans seasons, 6.5 sacks, 10 sacks, 8.5 sacks, 17 sacks, 8 sacks, 6.5, 5, 7, 3. He was a 3-time first-time All-Pro. This dude was just a 6-time Pro Bowler. The way that Leroy Glover won, because I saw his name and I was like, oh, I kind of like that. I went back and I watched some film. They win in very similar ways. They were built very similarly. Speed, powerful hands, just devastating quickness getting into the backfield. So Leroy Glover is my early comp for Mason Graham here.
He's going to be a favorite for everyone. I mean, we did talk about maybe some people will project Walker's tools over him.
Yeah,
I certainly couldn't. I just thought Graham was he'd be a good NFL player today. That's how good he was, honestly.
There we go. That's our top 8. Actually, you want to read off of your top 8 and then
yes,
we'll get out of here.
8 for me from Cincinnati, the Godfather, Deonte Corleone. 7 for me from Clemson, Demonte Capehart. 6 for me was Notre Dame's Howard Cross III. 5 was Shemar Turner from Texas A&M. 4 was Kenneth Grant from Michigan. 3 was Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. 2 was Deone Walker from Kentucky. Number 1 was Mason Graham from Michigan.
Number 8, I had Howard Cross from Notre Dame. And number 7, I had his teammate Rylie Mills from Notre Dame. 6, Bear Alexander from USC. 5, TJ Sanders from South Carolina. 4, the Godfather himself, Dontay Corleone from Cincinnati. 3, Deone Walker from Kentucky. 2, Kenneth Grant from Michigan. And then Mason Graham from Michigan as well at number 1. I watched a handful more players. I watched Tyleik Williams, which you talked about. I watched Joey Slackman from Florida. I watched Thor Griffith from, Joey Slackman was at Penn, and now he's at Florida going into the season. Thor Griffith was at Harvard. Now he's at Louisville. I watched both of those guys.
A lot of brains between those two.
Dude, and they're monster run defenders too. Those guys have great backgrounds, fun stories. So if you guys have want us to explain that, just shout it out in the comments. I'll kind of give my thoughts on both those guys. Watch Anais Peebles from Virginia Tech, Tonka Hemingway, Walter Nolan, Nazir Stackhouse. So if you guys have any questions on any of those players, please fire off in the comments section. It's the best way for us to kind of see those questions, and we can answer those, tell you what we thought if we watched them. Or, of course, name anybody else that maybe we didn't get to on our 14, 15 player list that we watched going into this. If there's somebody that we need to watch that you think is notable, let me know. I'll try to get to him before the season's over to make sure to get him in the mock draft simulator for you guys to be able to draft. Best way to get on the conversation, no matter what it is, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. The comment section is the one-stop shop, really, for all of your feedback, all the conversations, all the back and forth between the listeners and us. If you're audio only, you can hit us up on X and Instagram at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers as well. Connor, anything else before we call it a week?
You summed it up pretty good. I also watched Jay Toya from UCLA. It's a lot of names in this group. More names that we still want to get through that are on the watch list. I think I have Oh man, I have 11 names on the watch list that I didn't watch already.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
I got to most of the guys on my list that I wanted to watch. So that's
I kind of know who's a day 3 UDFA projection where I know where I can cut it off for the summer, but you get surprised once in a while. That's the thing. You never know when you're going to get surprised. So we got Edge next week, right?
Yep. We got Edge
that
next
should be
week.
a banger, honestly.
I already have 18 edge rushers written down.
It's always
that I have to watch.
Yeah, Edge is going to be. That's going to be a really, really good group. It's weird. Usually after Edge, we go, okay, linebacker, corner, safety. This year it feels different. I know corner and safety has a lot of first-round talent.
Holy cow, corner and safety are loaded.
I know. And then we got to do kicker, punter, and long snapper.
Of course. Yeah. And we're, of course, watching 20 long snappers before we get into the season.
Snap velocity and timing and angle.
If anybody's going to give it to the people, it's going to be us.
It would truly
it's
sick.
not going to be us. I'm just letting you know. Yeah. But if anybody was going to give it to you,
in need of antibiotics, if we
I actually do need to
point.
check athletic scores for punters and long snappers because I'm sure we have the data on them.
I'm sure you chipped everyone.
It's true. Yeah. All right, I'll get to it before we get to the end of summer scouting. Appreciate everybody watching and listening to the show. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. This has been the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We'll see you guys next week.